Yvette froze the moment he saw them. His hands trembled, the newborn puppies still slick with birth. These aren't normal," he whispered, his voice breaking through the stunned silence. Moments earlier, a stray dog had been rescued off the streets, weak, starving, about to give birth. No one expected her story to become a nightmare, but as the puppies took their first breaths, something was wrong. Their eyes opened too soon. Their hearts beat too strong. Their fur shimmered under the clinic lights like metal beneath the sun. The vet's face went pale. "I've seen genetic mutations," he said quietly, "but never this." What followed that night would expose a secret buried for years and prove that some miracles come with a terrifying price. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The wind howled through the narrow alleyways, carrying the faint scent of rain and the distant hum of city lights. Under a flickering street lamp, a dog limped along the wet pavement, her belly heavy, her breath shallow. She had once been strong, proud even, but weeks of hunger had drained her strength. Each step was a struggle, yet she refused to stop. Something inside her, an instinct deeper than pain, kept her moving. She was going to be a mother soon. Cars roared past on the main road, their headlights slicing through the darkness, but no one noticed her. To most, she was just another stray, another shadow wandering the streets. Her ribs showed beneath her dull fur, her paws cracked and bleeding. Still, she searched, for food, for warmth, for a place safe enough to bring her puppies into the world. She finally found shelter beside an old wooden shed behind a quiet neighborhood. The air smelled of earth and damp leaves. Curling up on the cold ground, she whimpered softly, pressing her head against her swollen belly as if to reassure the tiny lives inside her that everything would be okay. But as the night deepened, thunder rolled across the sky. Rain began to fall in heavy sheets, drenching her fur and turning the ground to mud. She tried to stand, trembling, her legs barely supporting her weight. The storm grew louder, lightning flashing across the horizon. She barked weakly, hoping someone, anyone, would hear her. Then through the noise of the storm, a faint light appeared from a nearby porch. A woman had stepped outside holding an umbrella, scanning the darkness. Her eyes landed on the trembling figure by the shed. "Oh my God," she whispered, rushing forward. The dog flinched at first, unsure whether to run or stay, but the woman's voice was soft, warm, almost pleading. "Hey there, girl. It's okay," she said gently. The dog hesitated, then collapsed from exhaustion at the woman's feet. That night, beneath the storm's fury, a fragile bond began, one that would soon uncover a truth the world was never meant to see. Lena knelt beside the trembling dog, her heart breaking at the sight. Rain poured around them, soaking her jeans, but she didn't care. The dog's eyes, tired, fearful yet still alive with a glimmer of hope, met hers for a brief moment. That was all it took. Lena slipped off her coat, gently wrapping it around the animal's shivering body. "You're safe now," she whispered, her voice trembling as much as her hands. She carried the weak creature into her small cottage, the warmth of the fire instantly filling the room. The dog whimpered, curling up near the hearth, too exhausted to move. Lena fetched a towel, carefully drying her fur, whispering softly as if speaking to a frightened child. "You poor thing. How long have you been out there?" On the kitchen counter, a small bowl of leftover chicken waited. Lena shredded it into pieces, placing it near the dog. At first, the dog didn't move, then with cautious hunger she began to eat, her tail giving a faint wag. Lena smiled for the first time that night. "There you go. Good girl." Hours passed. The storm outside finally began to fade, replaced by the steady hum of crickets. Lena sat on the floor beside the dog, watching her chest rise and fall. "You look ready to pop," she said softly, noticing the dog's swollen belly. "Don't worry, sweetheart. You can rest here. No one's going to hurt you." For the first time in days, the dog felt safe. She shifted closer to the fire, letting the warmth seep into her tired bones. Her eyelids fluttered, finally surrendering to sleep. Lena reached out and gently stroked her head. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered. Outside, the rain stopped completely, and a faint glow of dawn crept through the window. Neither of them knew it yet. But this act of kindness would soon pull them both into a mystery darker and deeper than either could have imagined. A new life had been saved, but something else was about to awaken. The next evening came quietly, the kind that wrapped the little cottage in peace. Lena had set up a soft blanket near the fireplace, turning it into a makeshift bed for the dog she now called Grace. The gentle glow of the fire flickered against the walls, and for a moment everything felt calm. But as midnight drew closer, that calm began to break. Grace stirred restlessly, her breathing becoming uneven. A low whine escaped her throat, followed by a trembling shudder that rippled through her body. Lena, who had been half asleep on the couch, shot up instantly. "Grace, what's wrong?" she whispered, hurrying to her side. She could see the tension in Grace's muscles, the way her sides heaved. Then it hit her. Grace was going into labor. Lena's pulse quickened. She'd never dealt with anything like this before. Okay, it's all right," she murmured, fumbling for her phone. Her fingers trembled as she dialed the local animal clinic. "Dr. Harris? Please, you have to come quick. My dog's in labor and something's wrong. She's in pain." Minutes felt like hours. Grace whined louder, her eyes wide and desperate. Lena knelt beside her, stroking her head, trying to keep her calm. "You're doing so good, sweetheart. Just hold on. Help's coming." She placed clean towels near the fire, her heart pounding as she tried to remember everything she'd read online. Outside, headlights cut through the darkness as a car pulled up. Relief washed over Lena when Dr. Harris stepped inside, his medical bag in hand. He knelt beside Grace immediately, his experienced eyes assessing her condition. "She's struggling," he muttered. "But we're not too late." Lena watched helplessly as the vet prepared for the delivery. Grace whimpered, pressing her head against Lena's lap, trusting her completely. The room was filled with tension, fear, and something deeper, a connection neither woman nor animal could explain. Then, as the clock struck midnight, the first contraction hit. Grace let out a cry that echoed through the room. The moment had come, and with it the beginning of something no one could have foreseen. Dr. Harris worked quickly, his calm professionalism cutting through the tension that gripped the room. He had delivered countless litters in his 20 years as a veterinarian, but something about this night felt different. The air was heavy, the silence between Grace's cries unsettling. The fire crackled softly, casting long shadows on the wooden floor as he spread his instruments on a clean towel. Lena hovered close, clutching a blanket to her chest. "Is she going to be okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. The vet glanced up briefly, his expression steady but serious. "She's strong," he said, "but the labor's progressing faster than normal. We need to be careful." Grace whined again, her paws clawing lightly at the blanket beneath her. Dr. Harris gently stroked her side. "Easy, girl. Breathe through it," he murmured. He injected a small dose of pain relief, then positioned himself to assist the delivery. Lena knelt beside Grace, whispering soothing words, her hand resting gently on the dog's neck. Minutes passed in tense silence. The storm outside had returned, rain tapping against the window like an anxious heartbeat. Dr. Harris watched closely as Grace pushed through another contraction. Then he frowned. "That's strange," he muttered under his breath. Lena leaned closer. "What is it?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he adjusted his gloves, peering more closely. Something about the way Grace's abdomen was moving seemed irregular. Her contractions weren't just strong, they were uneven, unpredictable. "She's reacting differently," he said softly. Almost as if he stopped himself, shaking his head. "Never mind. Let's focus on getting the first one out." Grace let out a sharp cry. Dr. Harris steadied her, guiding gently. "Here we go," he whispered. "Almost there." And then, with a wet gasp of breath and a trembling push, the first puppy entered the world. But when the vet looked down, his face went pale. He froze, staring at the tiny creature in his hands, eyes wide, pulse racing. "Lena," he whispered hoarsely, "you might want to see this." Lena leaned forward, her heart pounding as Dr. Harris held the newborn puppy under the soft glow of the fireplace. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The rain outside drummed harder, as if echoing the tension filling the room. The puppy let out a faint cry, alive, breathing, but something was undeniably strange. Its fur was damp and slick, but not the typical pale color of a newborn. It was dark, almost metallic in sheen, glinting faintly in the firelight. Its eyes, though barely open, reflected light in an unnatural way, like a shimmer of amber and silver mixed together. Lena blinked, unsure if the exhaustion was playing tricks on her. Is that normal?" she asked hesitantly. Dr. Harris didn't respond right away. He gently wrapped the pup in a towel, inspecting it closely. "I've delivered hundreds of litters," he said slowly, "but I've never seen pigmentation like this. And look, its paws." Lena moved closer. The tiny paws were larger than normal, with faintly defined pads, almost as if the bones beneath were more developed than they should be. The puppy squirmed weakly, letting out a soft whimper that sounded sharper, stronger than expected. Grace licked the air anxiously, watching her baby from the blanket. Lena placed the pup beside her, and Grace immediately began to clean it, maternal instinct overriding everything else. But even as she did, another contraction seized her body. Dr. Harris adjusted quickly, preparing for the next birth. "Her vitals are holding steady," he muttered, checking Grace's pulse. "Let's see if the others are normal." The second contraction came fast, and soon another puppy emerged, then another. Each one cried, healthy and strong, but the strange details remained. The same sheen in their fur, the same oddly colored eyes, the same strong, rhythmic cries. Lena felt her stomach twist as she looked at the growing litter. "Dr. Harris," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What's happening to them?" He looked at her, eyes narrowing, face pale under the flickering light. "I don't know," he said quietly. "But these aren't normal puppies." For a long moment, the only sounds in the room were the soft whimpers of the newborns and the steady crackle of the fire. Lena sat frozen, her mind trying to make sense of what she was seeing. The puppies were alive, vibrant, strong, but there was something off about them. Their tiny chests rose and fell in unison, perfectly synchronized, almost unnatural in rhythm. Dr. Harris leaned closer, his brow furrowed. He gently touched one of the pups with a gloved finger. "Their heartbeats," he murmured. "They're too strong for newborns. And their temperature, higher than it should be." He adjusted his stethoscope, checking again, his expression darkening. Lena swallowed hard. "Are they sick?" He shook his head. "No, that's the strange part. They're not weak, they're enhanced somehow." Grace watched them protectively, her eyes soft but wary, as if sensing the unease in the room. Every time Dr. Harris reached for a puppy, she growled low, her instincts flaring. Lena placed a calming hand on her back. "It's okay, girl. He's just helping." One of the puppies tried to crawl, but its movement was coordinated, too smooth for its age. Lena blinked in disbelief. "Did you see that?" "I did," Dr. Harris replied grimly. "Newborns can barely move. This one's already aware of its surroundings." The vet's hands trembled slightly as he reached for his phone. "I need to document this," he said under his breath, snapping a quick photo. The flash made Grace bark sharply, startling everyone. Lena pulled the phone away. "Please, don't scare her," he sighed. "You don't understand. I've worked with police canines, service dogs, and rescue litters. But this is something else entirely." Lena's eyes darted between the pups, each one marked with a faint stripe along its spine, barely visible, but glowing under the light like threads of silver. The sight made her shiver. "What does it mean?" she whispered. Dr. Harris looked up slowly, his voice low and uncertain. "It means someone didn't just breed these puppies. They engineered them." Dr. Harris placed his stethoscope on the table, his hands trembling slightly as he stared at the litter before him. The puppies were huddled together, their tiny bodies radiating warmth far beyond normal temperature. One of them yawned, and Lena caught a glimpse of its small, sharp teeth, already forming. Her heart skipped a beat. "That's impossible," she whispered. "They were just born." "I know," Dr. Harris said quietly. He crouched beside Grace and examined the pups again, more carefully this time. "Look here, these markings." He pointed to faint, almost geometric patterns beneath the fur, visible only when the firelight flickered across their skin. "It's as if their DNA's been modified." Lena frowned, her mind racing. "Modified? Like some kind of experiment?" He nodded reluctantly. "These aren't normal genetic mutations. Someone altered their structure deliberately, their muscle density, their nerve development. It's far more advanced than a newborn's." He reached for a notepad, sketching the strange markings as he spoke. "This isn't nature's work." Grace shifted nervously, nudging her pups closer. Her maternal instincts were fierce, protective. Lena knelt beside her, whispering softly, "It's okay, girl. No one's going to hurt them." But deep down, she wasn't sure if that was true. Dr. Harris stood abruptly, pacing the small room. "Years ago," he said, "there was talk of a secret breeding program, one that tried to create dogs with enhanced intelligence and strength for military use. It was supposedly shut down." He stopped, meeting Lena's eyes. "But if these puppies are what I think they are, then someone kept it going." The words hung heavy in the air. Outside, thunder rumbled again, as if echoing the dread that settled between them. Lena's voice broke the silence. "So what do we do now?" Dr. Harris looked back at the mother and her litter, his expression grave. "We keep them safe," he said, "because if anyone finds out these puppies exist, they won't stop until they get them back." And with that realization, both of them understood. The night's miracle had just become a dangerous secret. The following morning, the rain had stopped, but a strange heaviness lingered in the air. Lena brewed coffee in silence while Dr. Harris examined the puppies again, documenting every detail: heart rate, temperature, reflexes. Each test confirmed the same thing. These puppies were unlike anything he had ever encountered. Their senses seemed heightened. When a door creaked, all five turned their heads in perfect sync. When Grace's tail brushed the floor, they responded as if reacting to a signal only they could hear. Lena watched nervously. "You said something last night about a secret breeding program. What did you mean?" Dr. Harris hesitated, glancing toward the window as though afraid someone might be listening. "About 10 years ago," he began, "a government-funded research lab was exposed for genetic experimentation on canines. They were trying to create dogs that could detect explosives, illness, even human emotions, with extraordinary precision. But the project was shut down after reports of animal cruelty and missing test subjects." Lena frowned, disbelief in her eyes. "You think Grace came from there?" He sighed deeply. "It's possible. Maybe she escaped. Maybe someone abandoned her when the lab closed. Her behavior, her physical condition, it all fits. And these puppies." He looked down at the litter, now peacefully asleep beside their mother. "They're proof that the experiments didn't end when the facility did." Lena felt a chill crawl up her spine. "But if that's true, someone might still be looking for her." Dr. Harris nodded grimly. "And if they find out she survived, especially that she gave birth, those puppies won't be safe." Lena's gaze softened as she looked at Grace, who slept soundly beside her extraordinary pups. "She's been through so much," she whispered. "All she wanted was a place to feel safe." The vet's expression darkened. "Then we make sure she stays that way. But Lena, you should prepare yourself. If I'm right, we're not the only ones who know she's alive." Outside, across the quiet road, a black SUV sat motionless, engine off, windows tinted. And inside, two men watched the cottage, waiting. By afternoon, the unease in the cottage had thickened into quiet fear. Grace lay peacefully near the fire, nursing her newborns, unaware of the tension hanging in the air. Lena stood by the window, staring at the black SUV parked down the hill. "They're still there," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They haven't moved in hours." Dr. Harris joined her, his expression grave. "Then it's time we stop pretending this is a coincidence." He reached for his phone and dialed a number from memory, a contact he hadn't called in years. "This is Dr. Harris," he said quietly when someone answered. "I need to report something unusual, and I need it handled discreetly." Lena turned toward him, alarmed. "Who are you calling?" "The Animal Welfare Bureau," he replied. "And an old colleague of mine who used to investigate biolabs. If there's still an active program like the one I told you about, they'll want to know." As he spoke, one of the puppies lifted its tiny head, letting out a faint growl that seemed far too aware for its age. Grace responded immediately, nuzzling it protectively. The sight sent a shiver down Lena's spine. Dr. Harris lowered his voice. "We'll need a secure location for them, somewhere off the grid until we understand what we're dealing with." Lena's heart pounded. "You think they'll come for her?" He looked at her, his tone heavy with certainty. "They already have." Just then, headlights flickered outside as another vehicle turned down the road. The SUV's doors opened. Two men stepped out, dressed in dark jackets, moving with the precision of trained professionals. Dr. Harris grabbed his coat and motioned toward the back door. "We're leaving now." Lena hesitated only long enough to scoop up the smallest puppy, wrapping it in a blanket. Grace barked softly, sensing danger. The men outside approached the front porch, their silhouettes merging with the growing dusk. As rain began to fall again, Lena whispered, "Where do we go?" Dr. Harris didn't look back. "Somewhere they can't track us," he said. "Because once they realize what those puppies are, they'll never stop searching." The wind picked up as night fell again, carrying the scent of rain and danger. Lena held the smallest puppy close to her chest as she and Dr. Harris slipped out the back door of the cottage. Grace followed close behind, her fur bristling, every muscle tense. The forest loomed ahead, dark, wet, and endless, but it was their only chance. Behind them, car doors slammed and the crunch of heavy boots echoed across the gravel. "Move," Dr. Harris whispered, guiding her down a narrow trail that led toward the woods. Branches snapped underfoot and the distant bark of a dog, an unfamiliar one, cut through the silence. "They brought tracking dogs," he muttered. "They know she's here." Lena's pulse raced. "Then how do we lose them?" "By making sure they can't smell us." He reached into his bag, pulling out a small vial of strong antiseptic. "This will mask their scent for a while," he said, splashing it on the ground behind them. Grace whimpered but kept moving, her instincts in full alert. Through the trees, flashes of light appeared, flashlights sweeping through the darkness. Voices followed. "They couldn't have gone far," one man called. "Find the dog. The puppies are priority." Lena's breath caught. "They're talking about the puppies." Dr. Harris nodded grimly. "Exactly what I feared. Whoever they are, they're not from any official agency." He looked back, eyes narrowing. "These are private contractors." The group crept deeper into the forest until they reached an old, abandoned ranger cabin. Dr. Harris motioned them inside. The floorboards creaked under their weight, and dust swirled in the faint moonlight streaming through cracked windows. "We'll stay here until it's safe," he whispered. Outside, the sound of footsteps grew closer, measured, deliberate, hunting. Grace stood at the door, teeth bared, her growl low and steady. Lena clutched the puppy tighter, her voice shaking. "They're going to find us, aren't they?" Dr. Harris loaded a tranquilizer gun from his medical kit and whispered back, "Only if we let them." In that moment, man, woman, and dog became one team, ready to protect what the world was never meant to find. The cabin creaked in the wind, its wooden frame groaning like a living thing. Outside, flashlights danced through the forest, their beams slicing through the mist. Lena crouched behind an overturned table, clutching the smallest puppy against her chest. Grace stood beside her, growling quietly, every hair on her body raised. Dr. Harris peeked through a broken window, his face pale. "They're getting closer," he whispered. "We need to move before they surround us, but where?" Lena breathed. "We can't outrun them." He thought for a moment, scanning the shadows. "There's an old drainage tunnel near the ridge. It connects to the main riverbed. If we can reach it, they'll lose our scent." Lena hesitated. The idea of running through the woods with a mother dog and 5 newborns sounded impossible. But the alternative, being caught, was worse. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's do it." Dr. Harris grabbed his bag, checking the tranquilizer gun. "I'll lead the way. Stay close. Don't make a sound." The trio slipped out the back door, moving through the dripping pines. Every crunch of leaves felt deafening. Grace moved ahead, her instincts guiding her like a compass. Twice she stopped suddenly, ears twitching. Once before a flashlight beam passed just feet away, and again when the wind shifted, bringing the scent of the men behind them. Then, from the darkness, a voice shouted, "There! Over there! Run!" Dr. Harris hissed. They sprinted downhill, the forest erupting with noise, shouts, barking, the pounding of boots. Lena's lungs burned, but she didn't stop. The tunnel appeared ahead, half buried under roots and stone. Dr. Harris pulled back the grate, motioning them inside. Grace crawled through first, followed by Lena clutching the pup. The passage was cold and narrow, water dripping from above. Behind them, gunmetal footsteps echoed, too close. Dr. Harris turned back, fired a single tranquilizer dart, and heard a thud as one pursuer fell. He ducked into the tunnel and pulled the grate closed behind him. In the darkness, their breaths came fast, hearts pounding in unison. For now, they were safe, but only just. By dawn, the tunnel led them to an isolated clearing deep in the forest, where an abandoned ranger station stood hidden by overgrown vines and moss. Exhausted and drenched, Lena collapsed onto a bench, the puppies bundled safely in her coat. Grace lay beside her, her sides heaving, while Dr. Harris locked the door and drew the curtains. For the first time in hours, they could breathe. Lena's voice was barely above a whisper. We can't keep running forever. Someone needs to know the truth. Dr. Harris nodded grimly. And they will. He set his bag on the table and opened a small, weathered laptop. Before I retired, I had access to the BioVet database, the original files from the Genetic Canine Project. If those men are connected to it, their names will be here. He connected through a satellite hotspot, the screen flickering in the dim light. Lena watched as he typed rapidly, accessing encrypted records long thought deleted. Rows of files appeared labeled Project Helios, Phase 2. Lena frowned. That's it? That's what they were called? Dr. Harris clicked one open. Inside were genetic charts, experiment logs, and images of dogs that looked eerily like Grace, each tagged with numbers and barcodes. These were the prototypes, he muttered. They enhanced intelligence, physical strength, even sensory perception. But the program shut down after reports of instability. The subjects became unpredictable. Lena's heart sank. You mean dangerous? He hesitated. Not exactly, more like aware. He turned the screen toward her. The final entry made Lena's blood run cold. Specimen G07 escaped containment, status pregnant. Her eyes widened. Grace. Dr. Harris nodded solemnly. She wasn't just a stray. She was the last survivor. Outside, a faint rumble echoed in the distance. Engines approaching through the woods. Dr. Harris slammed the laptop shut. They found us. Lena clutched the puppies close. Then what do we do now? He looked toward the door, determination hardening his expression. Now we finish what they started, by making sure these lives aren't taken again. The distant sound of engines grew louder, echoing through the misty forest. Inside the ranger station, tension wrapped around the room like a tightening rope. Lena held the smallest puppy close, its heartbeat quick and steady beneath her trembling fingers. Grace paced restlessly, growling under her breath, sensing the danger drawing nearer. Dr. Harris moved to the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to see the convoy of black vehicles creeping through the trees. They're surrounding us, he murmured. We don't have much time. Lena's chest tightened. What do they want from them? They're just babies. Dr. Harris turned, his face pale but resolute. To them, they're not babies, they're assets. Living proof that Project Helios worked. If the government or those private labs get their hands on them, they'll spend their lives in cages. Dissected, tested, replicated. Lena shook her head in disbelief. No, I can't let that happen. Her voice cracked. They deserve to live like real animals, not experiments. Dr. Harris stepped closer, lowering his tone. Then you have to decide, Lena. We can hand them over to the authorities and hope they're protected or disappear. Take them somewhere no one can find them. But once you choose, there's no going back. She looked down at the tiny faces nestled against Grace's side. They weren't ordinary puppies. Their eyes followed her movements with uncanny intelligence, as if understanding every word. One of them whimpered softly, and Grace pressed her nose against its fur protectively. Lena wiped away a tear. She risked everything to bring them into this world, she whispered. The least I can do is protect them. Dr. Harris studied her, then nodded slowly. Then we run, far from here. I'll create a false record, say the mother and pups didn't survive. That'll buy us time. The rumble outside grew louder, headlights slicing through the fog. Lena took one last look at the warm glow of the fire before turning toward the back door. Let's go, she said, her voice steady now. If they want them, they'll have to go through me first. The forest was alive with the sound of pursuit, crackling radios, snapping branches, and the faint glint of flashlights cutting through the fog. Lena and Dr. Harris pushed forward through the undergrowth, Grace close behind, carrying one of her puppies gently in her mouth, while the others rested in Lena's bundled coat. Each breath came sharp, each step heavier than the last. Just a little further, Dr. Harris whispered. There's an old bridge ahead. Once we cross, they'll lose our trail in the river's current. But before they could reach it, a voice shouted from the distance. There, stop where you are. Lena froze, heart hammering. Figures emerged from the trees. 3 men in dark tactical gear, guns raised, flashlights glaring in their eyes. Grace immediately stepped forward, standing between them and her puppies, her growl deep and fierce. Get back, one of the men barked. We're authorized to retrieve the specimens. Specimens? Lena repeated, disbelief in her voice. They're living beings. She's their mother. Grace snarled louder, her instincts in full force. When one of the men took a step closer, she lunged, not in blind rage, but with precision and purpose. Her body moved faster than any normal dog should. She knocked the weapon from his hand, teeth flashing in the dim light. The other two men stumbled back in shock. Dr. Harris fired his tranquilizer gun, striking one in the shoulder. "Go, Lena!" he shouted. Lena didn't hesitate. She ran toward the bridge, clutching the puppies as Grace fought to hold the men back. The mother dog was relentless, dodging strikes, growling, protecting. But as she turned to follow Lena, one man raised his weapon again. A sharp crack echoed through the forest. Grace yelped, then stumbled. "Grace!" Lena screamed, spinning around. She rushed back, falling to her knees beside her. Blood stained her fur, but Grace still nudged her puppies closer with her nose, refusing to let them go. Dr. Harris knelt beside them, his voice trembling. "She saved you. She saved them all." Grace's eyes met Lena's, filled with pain but also peace. In that final moment, a mother's instinct had done what no experiment ever could. It had proven love was the strongest force of all. Weeks passed, and the chaos of that night slowly faded into silence. Deep in the mountains, far from cities and roads, Lena and Dr. Harris built a quiet refuge, a hidden sanctuary surrounded by pine trees and the soft murmur of a nearby stream. Snow began to fall, blanketing the cabin they now called home. It wasn't much, but it was safe. Inside, by the fireplace, 5 small puppies slept curled together, their breathing steady and calm. Grace's absence still lingered like a shadow in Lena's heart. Sometimes she thought she heard the faint jingle of a collar in the wind, or saw a flash of brown fur in the trees. But then she'd look at the puppies, the legacy Grace left behind, and her sorrow would soften into something warm. "She'd be proud of you," Lena whispered, brushing her hand over their tiny heads. Dr. Harris sat nearby, studying the puppies as they played. "They're developing faster than expected," he said with quiet awe. "Their reflexes, awareness, even comprehension, it's extraordinary. But they're not dangerous. Whatever their genes were made for, they've inherited something else, something purer." Lena smiled faintly. Maybe that's because they were born out of love, not control. One of the pups climbed onto her lap, its silver-marked eyes meeting hers with uncanny understanding. She felt it then, a spark, a connection deeper than words. These weren't just experiments or miracles. They were proof that nature could not be rewritten without consequence. Yet love could rewrite anything. Dr. Harris closed his notebook. "What will you do with them?" he asked softly. Lena looked out the window where sunlight broke through the clouds, casting gold over the snow. "Raise them," she said simply. "Protect them. Teach them what Grace taught me. That the world isn't always kind, but it's worth fighting for." The puppies barked playfully, their tails wagging in unison. The fire crackled, and for the first time in a long while, peace filled the room. Dr. Harris smiled, glancing at the pups. "Maybe they were never meant to be normal," he said. "Maybe they were meant to change everything.